We're live and we're back for our final 10x podcast episode of the year. I am super excited to have you all here. Thank you for those who are joining us. I know in the holiday madness that you probably are all scrambling to finish your work and also probably some present wrapping. So we appreciate you showing up. For Patrick today, I'm super excited to have Patrick, who is joining us to share how his team is moving beyond anonymous account only intent and winning in a era of signal based prospecting. There's so many tools out there. How do you evaluate them? Patrick is going to help demystify all of this for us. And Patrick is actually a customer of Pocus, so he can also shed some light on how they went through the process of evaluating Pocus and how the team uses the tool. Patrick, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure thing. So, Patrick, I'm with Coveo. As you see in my title there, it's interesting because when I purchased Focus, I was VP of Sales Dev, and now I moved into individual contributor. I'm an enterprise AE, and I use Focus a little bit differently. Before Coveo, I guess I started my sales career at Yellow Pages, and then I went into tech sales, I would say about 10, 15 years ago. Was always on the lookout for the best potential tools, always trying to improve the tech stack, been through all the iterations that got the industry excited over the last 15 years. And I stumbled on Pocus on the Pavilion community. Somewhere in one of the Slack channels, I saw something about Pocus. It got me, it piqued my interest, and then the rest is history.
That's awesome. Um, I imagine over 15-year career, you've seen kind of every flavor of sales tactic, every flavor of tool, and what was hot 5 years ago is no longer. And then you also see the hype cycle repeat where things that were cool, like cold calling, kind of went out of favor, and now cold calling is really back. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen prospecting change? And in particular, what has really changed over the last few years?
Yeah, I think if I were to summarize it, we went from automating things. I feel like 10 years ago was a lot about doing more of the same thing. And so using, for example, sequencing tools like Outreach or SalesLoft. So automating. And now I feel like we're going to the era of augmenting with AI, right? So helping the SDRs or the AEs do more, be more, with the help of machine learning and all the different AI models out there that are basically applied to our day to day. Um, yeah, I feel like that's the big shift that's happening for us and also for other industries as well.
Yeah, I like the way you put that, the era of automation and, you know, really mapping out every single possible fork in a workflow, and then you try and automate that entire thing. And now with AI, with the advanced capabilities, there's actual reasoning and thinking that can happen, which can then, take some of the guesswork out of, I guess, what reps are doing and help them move forward a little bit faster and not get stuck in any part of the process. Um, when we chatted, you mentioned that there were some specific areas when you were VP of Global Sales Dev that you specifically said, like, these are the areas that are really slowing the team down. Can you talk a little bit about those specific areas and how you identified them?
Yeah, I mean, our team is largely based out of Montreal, and when I was running the sales development team at Coveo, it was roughly, I would say, 30 plus people, 35. And we are in like a hybrid workforce, so in office 3 days a week. And I noticed that people were not on the phone, and and it wasn't because they were afraid of going to the phone, but they weren't really prospecting. They were stuck in a loop of prepping, and they were
Mm.
prepping and prepping and prepping. And we do enterprise selling, so we go after large accounts. And what we do know is that you cannot just spray and pray when it comes to trying to connect with a C level or an SVP. Let's say you need to have a really strong point of view, a strong reason for reaching out, as something that's going to be compelling. And my team, everyone's super smart and they want it to be really, prepped properly. But as you know, it's not really scalable to read through all the 10Ks out there before to develop a strong point of view. So if I were to break down the workflow, it was selecting the next 8 accounts to prospect for the next week, developing a strong point of view, like, okay, what do we think the big problems are for them, where our solution matches and can help, and then identifying the right 5, 6, 7, 8 people that we do want to reach out, and then looking in Salesforce, do we already have those folks? Do we have the right email, the right phone number? So enriching in Salesforce, and then from there, bringing those folks into the right sequence, and then building the right email. And so that we realized that it was burning about 25 to 40 plus percent of any SDR, BDR's time on a weekly basis, and we feel like that was a miss. That was taking too much time, and that's one of the areas where when I first landed on Pocus, I'm like, I think Pocus could help us there.
Mhm. Super interesting, and, 20 to 40%, that's not what anyone wants. How did you I guess for folks who are listening, I'm sure there are people who are like, "I think there's something slowing my SDRs down, but I don't quite know what," or, "I think we could be doing better." What was the process of diagnosing all of this like? And did you just have a strong hypothesis and then went and validated with a few reps, or what did that look like?
Just sitting next to them. Like, "Show me your screen, like, what do you do? Like, how do you prep for next week?" And I was shocked of like, "Okay, that's crazy, that's broken." Too many screens, we're calling it swivel sharing, so you just go from one screen to another and this and then, "Oh, okay, LinkedIn sales now, I'm not getting it, zoom in for oh, let's go in Apollo." And it was just madness, and, that's where we saw a lot of inefficiencies. But yeah, like that's one of the key strengths of, I guess, working together in an office. I love working from home, don't get me wrong, but it just allowed us to see it really clearly, between us.
Yeah, that's a great call out. If you are not asking your reps to do a reverse demo for you, you're really missing out on stuff. I mean, even with our reps at Pocus, they're using Pocus, but each rep kind of uses Pocus slightly differently. So it is always interesting to have them reverse demo to you and see if there are any areas of improvement even in the platform. So I can, optimize it more for how they are actually working versus how I think they are working. Um, Awesome. I know that prior to bringing on Pocus, the team was, actually, using intent, which I think is, not as common. I would say, like, people want to use intent, but they don't necessarily, know how, and Patrick, you mentioned they were using some account-based, kind of like top-level signals, but that wasn't necessarily working, and I think this is a hard thing for people to understand the difference between why those, like, account-based signals, are only giving you some of the picture and getting more granularity actually drives more results for a team.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it's account based intent signals are a hit and a miss at the same time. So I think there's still a place for them because it's useful to know that an account is kind of warming up. But for us, it was contributing to wasting all that time because sometimes I would sit next to my SDR and would say, "Hey, Pat, there's someone in Arkansas. They typed in Google digital transformation 4 times. I'm trying to find who," and then they burn 3 hours trying, like playing Sherlock Holmes. And I get it; it makes sense. But at the same time, these moments add up, and at the end of the month, you're just not covering enough accounts. You don't have a good enough market coverage. Um, so useful, but it wasn't enough for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, and what other signals did you feel like you were missing?
Um, so we have 2 motions, both inbound and outbound. For inbound, for example, we'd receive our MQLs, and our BDRs would work the MQLs. But if we weren't able to book a meeting, those MQLs were just going into oblivion. We'd call it like we're going to nurture them. that was very kind of weak process. Um, and it was a missed opportunity because I thought maybe 6 months down the road something happens and then the timing is right. How are we going to know that the timing is right? So so that was interesting. And on the outbounding side, there's just so many accounts. Let's say we're working North America for one of our regions. Where do we focus, next? Knowing how our time and energy is limited. So we've always been very strong on signals. I mean, we use tools, but we're partner led as well. So partners are going to be pitching in. So having a tool like Pocus, and maybe I'm going over your question here, but has been helpful just whenever we have our cadence calls with a partner and we can share what Pocus is teaching us about specific individuals. You bring actually a lot of value there. So yeah, it kind of fits the ecosystem, I guess, makes it work.
Yeah, very interesting. Was there a lot of, enablement education required for the team to understand the concept of signals and how to use them and how to use it as part of developing a POV for an account?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a change management. Not gonna lie. So and which is why we actually ran a POC, a proof of concept, which was great. We highlighted, you know, Pocus. Yes, that's where we realized Pocus. Yes, and even more important, let's adapt Pocus to our needs, which the team did a fantastic job of. And so from there, we were able to unlock quite a lot of value from day one. But definitely, yes, doing the testing together, and the team came in the office as well, so which was very appreciated. And a lot of support and training was really key to making sure that we were unlocking as much value as possible from the get go.
Yeah, awesome. That segues nicely into I want to talk about evaluating tools. So you went through this evaluation process with Pocus. I'm sure you've done it with multiple other tools. There are probably leaders listening to this who are experiencing a lot of go-to-market tool fatigue, especially with new AI tools. How do you decide what to invest in versus what to skip? So walk us through your process of evaluation and if there are any frameworks that you use.
Yeah, so high level, my North Star in my previous job was more quality pipeline, more pipeline that sticks and progresses to the later stages and eventually becomes close one, and and helping progress a pipeline faster, so pipeline velocity. So any tool that was transformational, not just incrementally help us by 5% more. I think with the era of AI, I was looking for something that can really change the game for us. Then when I identified that, I would be willing to work with that tool even if it wasn't perfect, because the uplift would be so big that, when I evaluated Focus, I had a conservative scenario when it comes to time saved for each of my teammates, and conversion improvement by having stronger messaging from stronger point of view and all that stuff. And even with my conservative scenario, it was still material improvement. And so also I learned in the past that, take risks. It's okay. N- there's no one single decision that's going to kill the entire function or operation. And we're leading in our space and we need to make some bets. But I yeah, I was looking to make bets on a tool or on a few tools that could um, really significantly improve things for us.
Yeah. I like that message because I do think that a lot of teams get stuck in analysis paralysis, and they'll evaluate and evaluate and evaluate and never make a decision. Uh,
Like, I mean, you could de-risk. You could say we'll keep evaluating until the risk is gone, but then like a year to 2 years extra pass, and you kind of like you missed the curve, and then suddenly we're not accelerating our pipeline the way we did at Coveo, which means the company, like, we're not feeding our sales team the same way, right? So
yeah.
let's go. And frankly, it wasn't, the value we got was not my optimistic scenario, but it was more alongside the realistic one, which was great. So imagine if I would have waited until everything's perfect, then we don't get that uplift. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The cost compounds the longer you wait. Your team is kind of behind the curve on adopting these new tools. They're probably also tired if you're in a constant evaluation cycle, getting pulled into different things. And yeah, there's probably a lot of costs that you're just like not considering when you go through that analysis paralysis. Um, Another thing I hear from a lot of leaders right now is looking for tools that can address multiple use cases versus being point solutions. Do you feel like that's still a thing that you're constantly looking for is like consolidated platforms or consolidated workflows? Um, and what is like the general feeling amongst other leaders in sales around that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a RevOps or operations specialist by any means. For me, it was very simple. One of the first thing that I realized with Pocus, I'm like, oof, okay, they're going to be living in Pocus, so that becomes a new place where I'm asking my team to live. So the value really has to be there. And also, what I want to see is if we start living in Pocus, we need to cut something else. We need to live a lot less in LinkedIn Sales Nav, for example, or somewhere else. Like I didn't want to bloat, so ideally, we're simplifying things. Uh, I certainly did not want to add more complexity, and I was looking for a tool like our Salesforce was a bit of a mess, not gonna lie. And so I needed to work with a solution that would mesh well with where we were at and didn't come back to us a year later and say, well, Focus is great, but because you guys don't have your ducks in a row, then you didn't get the value. No, like it's always going to be a mess. Can it help us despite the mess? And yes, so that's why we went for it.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I don't know anyone who has a Salesforce instance they're happy with. So,
So
I think everyone hates their CRM setup, and it's always a work in progress.
yeah. My manager of the BDRs and they handle the inbound. At one point, she's like, "Okay, we're done living in Salesforce to see, for example, for an MQL, see where it comes from and all the activate. Like Focus gives us a much better view. Sold. We're gonna live in like just with this, we're sold. We're good."
Yeah, just the one thing. I love that. Um, Tell me a little bit about how tactically prospecting has changed for your team, since starting to use Pocus and since getting more signals and more research as part of the process.
Yeah, well, we have what we call the playbooks, as you know very well. So playbooks is basically for those of you on the call that do not know is stitching some signals together. It could be a single signal. It could be a playbook about a champion that's leaving a company. Uh, they know Coveo, they love Coveo, they use Coveo, for example, but they're moving into a new company that we're trying to get into, right? Champion tracking. But then it can also it can be whatever we think about. So for an SDR, for a BDR, the day starts by just glancing at the new signals that we're seeing into the account. So that would be a big one. Um, Otherwise, for me, in my day to day, as a now I'm an AE, right? So how I use this, I know which accounts I want to go after. There's a section where I see all of my, which is nice to focus. I see only my stuff, my accounts, my leads. So I see my accounts, I see the movement in the accounts, but then I can dive in. And one thing that Hannah and the team at Focus did was for example, I sell one of our lines of business, e-commerce, right? And I want to talk with chief digital officers and VPs of e-com and stuff like that. So Focus basically knows all the titles that are relevant, and instead of just giving me all the context, it's giving me the ones that are relevant for e-commerce, right? So I bypass completely LinkedIn Sales Nav. It's all being pulled in, and from there, I'm one click away from updating the contact or the lead in Salesforce if the data was wrong on our side. Happens quite a bit. Or creating it in our Salesforce, and then one click, it's up into my outreach sequence. So saving a lot of time with defining which account I want to go after, why. It helps me develop a good point of view because there's a section that kind of like tells me a little bit about the company and what's happening and the 10Ks and all that stuff. And so very quickly, I know which company to go after, which people I want to go after, bring them into my sequence. I personalize my first, my second message, so I have something really good. But that's the thing. Instead of working on finding those things, I can put my time on strategy, on personalizing something that really makes sense, and that's gonna improve my chances of connecting with those folks.
Yeah. Um, that's, I really love hearing about your workflow because I think it sounds really simple, but when you are doing that across several different tools, it gets really complicated very fast, and I think that's the most basic form of value that Focus provides. It's like, it's all in one place, it's gonna make it really easy. Um, what are the key differences between how you now in your AE role use Focus differently than, the SDR team does?
I think it's less volume and it's more in depth. So, I have different workbooks. That's for one. So that's one thing. Otherwise, it's for example, I'm going to NRF and I want to invite very specific people. So I use Focus to find those people as well. And then I'm going to circle back on one thing I said. I spend a lot of time with our partners, and so I have a lot of partners we work with, and so one thing that's important for me to build trust with them and bring value to them is inform them on what's happening on those joint accounts that we're trying to get in touch with and build some projects together. And Pocus has been really feeding me some really good stuff. So when I get on a call, like, hey, have you seen in this 10K they're talking about this, or there's a new person that just came in. Oh no, I didn't know. So I'm the person on the call now who's in the know for a lot of those accounts. And from it seems like nothing, but for an enterprise AE that needs to build trust, and bring value, in the ecosystem, that's been really good.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think they're in enterprise sales, that's like one of those intangibles of just being so well versed on the account, the industry, the space overall is such a huge value add. And you can never feel informed enough. And you could just endlessly research and spend hours and hours per day just doing that. And so having a bit of a shortcut there, I think is so helpful. Um, I use Focus as well for when I occasionally prospect like I am this month, with my SDRs, and, that's the part I really enjoy the most too, is just feeling like I know what's going on, and
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Like, I have, I don't know, 700 accounts, throughout Canada, so knowing that Pocus is keeping tabs on everything in all my accounts and is just gonna tell me whenever something happens, good. That works 24/7 for me, and this is great, and it's gonna tell me at the contact level, not just the account level, which is important.
Yeah. So, looking ahead, what do you feel like is one thing, uh, SDR leaders or sales leaders are maybe getting wrong about prospecting with AI and signals, and that you would wanna give them some advice on going into 2026, if you could give them some advice?
Well, I know I'm making a lot of mistakes, so I don't have the pretension to, but for me, what paid off was, we talked about it, so take big risks if the uplift warrants it, and for me was just attaching it to my North Star. So if I feel like this tool is gonna significantly help us book more meetings and progress things faster and have better market coverage, go for it. So that's one. Two, maybe not the right forum to talk about this, but phone is still a very good channel. Anyway, it's been for us. Um, we love phone, and yes, you'll send an email, you reach out on LinkedIn, but the phone really brings it together. Uh, it's very reliable. So whenever I have someone says phone is dead, maybe, but let's talk. Is I because I have hundreds of thousands of you know dials and connects, and then like a bunch of connects and meetings, and so I know the value of that. But yeah, like depending on how fast your company is going or wants to go, it's okay to take some risk, and that's how I sold it internally because I had to go and get budget. It's like, look, here's the uplift, here's the risk, here's what it means if we status quo, but here's what it means if we, conservative scenario with Pocus, for example. And here's how we feel fairly certain about what I'm sharing right now on this one slide. And yeah, for me, I lean into Pocus because from the get go, so yes, it's the tech seemed great, but the team was was leaning, forward as well with Hannah and with RAE, Miriam. They really did everything in team. They did everything they needed to reassure us and to set up the POCUS in a way that we would get that value.
Yeah. Well, Miriam and Hana are the best. They get endless shout outs. So kudos to them. And to your team for being, willing to kind of take that bet. Okay. Rapid fire round to close us out. I have two questions for you, Patrick. The first is, what's a go-to-market belief that you hold that maybe runs counter to the popular narrative?
Um, when everyone zigs, you should zag. So whatever new tactic that we find that, oh, everyone's doing this now, I should do it. It's not going to work. So so I'll just leave. Like for example, at one point it was videos in a LinkedIn message, like sending like using a video. It was great for 6 months, and then everyone was doing it, so not great anymore. Or we personalize a certain way everyone started. So I try to look at what's happening and I just go the complete opposite, and oftentimes that's gonna cut through the noise.
Mm, I love that. I think, a good rule of thumb is if you're already seeing multiple posts about it on LinkedIn, chances are it's probably not going to work for you. Um, awesome. And then my last question, if you could smash one thing about B2B go-to-market, it could be a tactic, a tool, a common practice, what would it be and why?
Um, anything that promises results without putting in the work. Anything that looks too good to be true, where, for example, AI, love AI, I work in AI, I use AI. Um, buy this AI SDR, they're gonna like no, like we still today, maybe it changed in the year, but today we still need to put in the work. Um, use AI to augment, but you still need to bring yourself to the plate for you to see some success. So I would go with that.
I love that. Yeah, I think, that's a great lesson for everybody. If it sounds just a little too easy and a little out there, it probably is. Uh, you should probably ignore that LinkedIn post you're seeing about, "I run my entire company using only agents."
Yeah, like they polarize to get the likes, and I get it, but it's a romanticized version of realities, oftentimes.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, these 30 minutes have gone by so fast. I feel like I could talk to you for another hour. Really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your insights with us. If people want to learn more about you or Coveo, where should they go?
LinkedIn, they can just find me. And yeah, great being on the show. Thank you so much for having me. Love Pocus. So happy to take the last 3 minutes to talk about it.
Appreciate it, Patrick. Thanks so much. And have a happy holiday, everybody. And we'll see you guys in the new year.